and welcome to the Fall for Watercolor Challenge, day 28. Today we're painting a jack-o'-lantern and we're going to make it glow. So we have done some glowing things with our harvest moon. So we're going to do that again today. So what we can do is we're going to paint our whole page a nice like lemon yellow. Make sure you have a clean brush. Looks like mine was a little dirty. I've sketched my pumpkin on here already. So I've got my little face. You can do it after this, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to layer on, we're going to do a yellow, and then we'll do, if you want to do like a little shadow around the eyes, we can, and then we'll add another layer for our pumpkin. So we're gonna, let's get started. Okay. So I'm gonna paint my pumpkin. And you can paint the whole background if you wanted to, but I'm just feeling the pumpkin right now. So we're just gonna paint the whole pumpkin. You know I love an underlayer. Ooh, dirty brush. I've got dirty water. That's okay. And just know that whatever you have drawn in pencil, once you put paint over it, it's like, it's a part of your painting now. Okay. It's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to like get rid of those pencil lines. But I know I'm going to come back on here with like mucho saturation, so I'm not too worried about it. Okay. I'm just painting his stem too, because like, why not? All right. And then we'll wait for this to dry. Actually, you know what I do? Okay, let's paint the whole background. I'm sorry. Take your brush now that you've done the yellow and kind of like outline it, and the yellow is going to like seep out, and this way it's going to look like it's glowing a little bit. Okay, I promise it's going to be cool. So just like kiss the yellow at the very end, and it's just going to like, yeah. Okay, I think that's great. Let's do it. There's like eraser lines all over this, but we'll blow dry this and then we'll be back in a moment. Okie dokie. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to mix up an orange, like a light orange. So I'm using my Hansa yellow deep. It's a really nice orange. And what we're going to do is we're going to paint everything except, except the inside of the pumpkin. So it'll look like it's like yellow inside. And if you have done like bubble lettering or something in the past, you can always make, here, let's bring this closer. You can always make like a little shadow of where you might see the edge of the pumpkin, like the rind of the pumpkin or whatever. And we're going to paint that like a darker orange. But if that feels too overwhelming, just leave your holes unpainted, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and start painting this in orange. And I'm gonna use a big paintbrush around most of it because I don't really want it to dry too fast. But if you are wanting to kind of like use a smaller paintbrush around the details, by all means, do that. Okay, so I've got, there we go. I'm just really feeling this big, juicy paintbrush today, you know? You know what I'm saying? Okay. There we go. Grab a little bit more color. I really need to clean my water because it's looking nasty. And it's making all my colors look kind of gross. Okay. There we go. Let's do this. It's drying a little bit over here, but that's okay because we are going to layer over this. So don't sweat it. I promise it's going to be okay. And I'm working my way around as fast as I can. Hopefully your pumpkin is not like a little bit blue because you are using clean water. Do as I say, not as I do. We've been talking a lot about losing teeth My daughter's in kindergarten, so it's all the rage. So I thought I'd make this little pumpkin with a little gap tooth and missing some bottom teeth. Okay, so I've done this in orange, and we're going to go ahead and let it dry. So use your blow dryer or your Epic Patience. Let me know in the comments. Are you a blow dryer person? Are you a patience person? Patience people, what's that like? All right, see you in a bit. All right, I'm going to use my smaller paintbrush for this, but now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of my Hansa Yellow dark, Hansa Yellow deep, and I'm going to add just a little bit of like my alizarin gold, or if you've got like alizarin crimson or something, and that's going to make just like a little bit of a darker orange. Okay, make sure you've got a fair enough paint puddle, and then you are going to start painting your pumpkin, everything except that edge line. So if you didn't use an edge line and you just kind of want to paint, well, why don't you watch, and if you want to try, you can. So I'm imagining, as I create this edge line, I'm imagining like where I'm looking at this pumpkin from. So I'm kind of imagining I'm like looking at it from this direction. And so that means I'm going to be able to see the inside of this eye, but I won't be able to see the inside of that side. And so I'm just leaving that unpainted. I kind of want this to be a little bit darker. Okay, I could see a little bit of the inside of the mouth. And this is just that like glow coming off of our little pumpkin. From the candle inside. I'm trying to work my way around somewhat evenly. Okay. I'm trying to remember. I saw somebody do a tutorial with a similar concept. They did like a really cool where the pumpkin is like going into the background. So like as they painted, like the ones further away were a little bit darker. And so each layer they put on like, oh gosh, I wish I could find it. I'll have to look. If anybody knows what I'm talking about, try to tag it in the comments. Is it from Rebel Unicorn? Maybe. But it's a really cool way to look at like how you can use layers and level of darkness to show like depth perception. Oh, I gotta mix up a little bit more. It's okay. It's okay. My paint puddle was not big enough. All right. Here we go. Yeah. And so this is kind of one of those things like the shape shadow kind of thing. This is just something that you will get, like, if you're like, what the heck are you talking about, Kate? Like, let me know, and we can talk about that more in future resources. But it's just something that as you keep painting, it just helps when you're looking at more reference photos, and like, yeah, pull up a picture of a jack-o'-lantern and see which parts of like the rind or whatever you can see, and use that as your example if you're wondering where to put those lines. But I don't want you to get too befuddled in like the physics, or like not physics, but like the logistics of the shape. Just if it's stressing you out, just don't do it. Okay, I promise it's gonna be okay. Okay, so now that our pumpkin is a little wet, I'm going to take a little bit more of that kind of crimson color, mix that in to make it a little bit darker, and then I'm just going to add where my like seams of my pumpkin would be, just to give a little bit of depth for my little pumpkin. A little pumpkin. And then a little bit around the edges too. We love a round pumpkin. I don't want to like stress it out too much. So then we're going to let that dry. Actually, I lied. I'm going to use some brown with the stem in too. I think we're going to get a little wet and wet action maybe. I'm excited about that. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe it's too dry already, but who knows? Yada-da-dum. All right. Okay. Oh, nasty little stem, but that's okay. A little pumpkin. Okay, so let's pause this and give it a dry, and we'll be back for more. All right, so if you want to get really granular with this, you can totally add in more detail around the curvature of the pumpkin and more shading and shadowing. I'm like really wanting to get down to business. So I'm of two minds with the background. You can either go really dark, and that's going to make the pumpkin really pop forward, or you can kind of like do where we wet the whole outside of the pumpkin and then do like a wet and wet action around the edge, so it gives the pumpkin a glow. So since I feel like just doing really dark around the outside of the pumpkin is pretty self-explanatory, let's do the other one and see what we think. So my brushes. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this pretty juicy because I got to get around my whole pumpkin. I'm going to try really hard not to paint on my pumpkin, just around. Watch out for the pumpkin. Okay, and the reason why I don't want to paint on my pumpkin is because if that color, when I add that really dark color, when it comes up, if I've painted over my pumpkin, it's going to cover it'll seep into the pumpkin. And we really want to keep that pumpkin popping. Okay. I feel like every time I'm saying pumpkin, I'm thinking of like Aziz Ansari and Parks and Rec when he's like, little puppy, little puppy. Anybody know what I'm talking about? All right. Just talking to myself because it's pre-recorded. Okay. So now I'm going to take, I'm really digging my purpley black from yesterday's painting. I'm just re-wetting it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just draw a nice little line on the outside of my box or whatever your exterior shape is. And I'm just going to drop in a ton of color around this edge. A lot of pigment here. It's really dark. And then I want to kind of fill in close to the pumpkin. And I want this to like just take its own adventure. It's going to ebb and flow. You can coax it a certain amount by adding more paint, or you can even like tilt your page if you want to really bring in the color. But I just really want to see what happens if I just kind of let it do its thing. And I say that, but I'm probably going to add some shenanigans to it in a moment. And at the bottom, I'm okay with adding like a little bit more grounding color because it's not like it's glowing from its butt, you know? Okay. Yeah, that helps ground it a little bit. And I colored over my pumpkin, and that's okay. And then at the top, I might add a little bit more over here just because it's not glowing from its hat. But I kind of like this. Okay, you can add more in where you want it to be darker. Maybe you want to like, I don't know, kind of dapple this a little bit. I'm just adding like a damp brush to kind of doodly doodly do. Make it look a little more glowy, just kind of like coaxing it in where I want more color to be closer to the pumpkin, or adding just little drops of like a damp brush where I might want it to like be closer to the pumpkin. What am I trying to say? Where I might want it to lighten. There we go. Then maybe I'll add like a little bit of, you know, his little like pumpkin lines. Did that ruin it? Maybe? Oh God. You know, I'm okay with it. Let's do that to give him his little pumpkin lines. Okay, and then I'm gonna add just a little bit shadow to the stem to give it a little oomph since I'm here and I'm fussing. And the true mark of a painter is knowing when to stop. So I guess I'm not a painter. No, that's not what we're talking about. we're all painters here and we're doing our best. And sometimes knowing when to stop is hard, and that's okay. So I'm gonna stop. Put it down, Kate. Okay, we've got our glowing pumpkin. Yay, happy jack-o'-lantern. Everybody let me know what you're gonna be for Halloween in the comments. Yay, happy painting.